Prepare yourself for Earthling Entertainment, the perfect blend of paranormal and pop culture, with your host, Joe Wakefield and Ryan Lang.
Howdy, and welcome.
Hi.
I had to say how it's the West episode.
It is. Continue.
And welcome to a Wild West episode of Earthling Entertainment with Joe Wakefield and Ryan Lang.
Hey, I'm your host known as the Wakefield Kid, Joe Wakefield.
I'm Ryan Lang. Howdy.
His bounty is $10, which is a big deal back when it's
Big
now.
deal. Yeah, 10 whole dollars.
$10. So if you are a returning listener, welcome back. Thank you. Please remember to download the episode. And if you are a new listener, you might be asking, what is it you do? What is this show all about? I mean, I could see it's a bit of a mystery. I mean, you could have just read the little blurb, but whatever. What we do here is a little bit of the spooky, a little bit of the creepy. Sometimes it's cryptozoology. Other times it is a legend, a myth, or a haunting, but it's always spooky. And that is why it is in our first segment called Spooky Stuff.
That makes sense.
Then, after that, we have a little thing called Disclosure Discussion. That one's all about aliens.
I'm just asking questions. UFOs, extraterrestrials, interdimensionals. Today we have a Wild West story as well.
That's right, because we're doing the Wild West theme all episode long. We decided we'd try something new. But normally, on a normal given show, this second part of the show, the latter half, if you will, is dedicated to all pop culture and entertainment. Sometimes we have celebrity guests. Other times we have audio dramas or we do trivia games. We usually have headlines, and sometimes we have to talk about celebrity deaths. But it's pop culture all the time. And then those two things together. The beginning, which is the spooky. This second, which is the pop culture fun, come together to make a delicious moon pie of a podcast known as Earthling Entertainment. Welcome.
Welcome indeed. We like to talk about what we like to talk about. Creepy stuff, UFOs, and nerdy stuff, like nerdy entertainment news. We love that shit.
That's right. But like Ryan mentioned, this is our Western-themed episode. We decided it would be fun to do what the sitcoms call a bottle episode. An episode that's just a little its own self-contained thing. And we picked a Western theme, so.
That's true. We did. I remember when I was a kid, I went to Universal Studios and they had like the Wild Wild West show.
Oh,
and it was really cool because they kind of just show how they did all of those stunts back in the day in the old Western films.
Yeah, before CGI, when people actually threw themselves off buildings when they got quote unquote shot.
Oh, it was cool. Like, yeah, dudes falling from, like acting like they got shot, the stereotypical twist around and fall off, insert the Wilhelm scream. And it was really cool. And, I love Westerns. I just watched, and there are new ones too. I just watched The Hateful Eight again last night.
Yeah, the remake of The Hateful Eight.
Mm-hmm.
Wait,
With, the Quentin Tarantino.
Excuse me, I was thinking of the Seven. Sorry. The
Yeah.
Hateful Eight is Quentin Tarantino. It is not a remake. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's very much a modern day Western,
Oh, well, yeah. It's not a modern day Western, but it is a modern Western film. I
Correct.
totally understand.
You know what I mean? Yeah, you know what I mean.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah.
And what's kind of interesting is the fact that a lot of times stuntmen and actors were this. The Duke? What's his name? The main guy, the main Western guy.
Oh, John Wayne.
John Wayne. Yeah, he started in his first film was Stagecoach, and he was a stuntman before that, and he did this crazy stunt where he's like literally hanging on under a stagecoach while it's moving, and he could have got trampled, he could have got run over by the wheel, and say what you want about John Wayne's politics later in life with the whole,
he was a little wild.
He got crazy. But that being said, that is some badass stuff.
Yeah, no, totally. There's a reason why everybody knows John Wayne, right? And it's like you got Clint Eastwood, like he's just like a badass. Like I don't really know him for doing any stunts or anything like that.
Well, he's just a good director. He was when he was 94 years old, which is like last year or whatever. He had 2 movies come out.
Mhm.
I'm just saying that if you could work when you're in your 90s, especially film industry hours, that is crazy. I mean, I'm sure they cut the days for him, but still.
It was Cry Macho. Was that one of them? I think.
And the juror number 2, I
Yeah,
think.
yeah. I want to say I watched Cry Macho.
You know what I liked is he did a movie. It was called like Blood Work, and spoiler for a movie that came out in the very early 2000s. But he had heart transplant. He was like a cop, and it turns out the serial killer he was always following around, trying to capture, had killed someone who he knew was a perfect match for the cop when he had heart, when he needed a heart, to make sure that he got the heart so they could continue their game.
Huh.
Yeah, weird, right?
That's pretty weird.
Yeah.
But so
Nothing to do with Western.
nothing. I was just gonna ask, so what to you when you think of a cowboy? Like who's like the most famous cowboy to you?
I guess it would be John Wayne, just simply because I don't know. I studied film, so there's a lot of John Wayne milestones.
Does Sheriff Woody count?
Yes,
Like
only absolutely, Ryan.
I feel like Sheriff Woody is like what
That's
I
your
think,
idea
like,
of a
that's
cowboy?
like, well, yeah. What's a cowboy without his hat? Like I don't know. I
Fair.
grew up on that. Like
Hey, man, that's cool.
that and City Slickers.
City Slickers.
That
That's a
was-
good one. That's one of my wife's family's like movie they always watched when they were young. So I never
Yeah.
seen it until recently, and I just watched it.
It's pretty good.
Then they had a bizarre sequel where they brought the guy back from the dead who died in the first movie. It was very strange.
But it like wasn't him. It was like his brother. Like they did
I don't remember it. See, there you go, Ryan.
Yeah, it was his brother.
It was his brother.
It was Curly's brother.
I always do think if you were going childhood, I think of Five Goes West.
Yes. That's
Yes.
another big one as well with Wiley Burp. And it's so funny because off of like Wyatt Earp or whatever.
Yeah, which in this case, the cartoon dog was Wiley Burp.
And it was played by the dude from It's a Wonderful Life. I can't think of his name. The Clarence. I want to live again.
Is that
like,
Jimmy Stewart?
Yes, that's him doing he does the voice for the dog. I don't know why. I just learned this, and I was like, no
Huh.
way. I didn't
Huh.
know that.
Well, it's kind of funny because the name of this episode is Earthlings Go West, and it's because of
Nice.
Five Goes West.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it.
Oh, well, guys, like we mentioned many times, the Old West is big in Hollywood, big in pop culture. Westerns were huge, which is why those sets all still exist, and you get a lot of sci-fi shows and other things where they visit the Old West time.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Because, Universal
Trek did that.
Exactly. Universal Backlot, just to name one, has a bunch of sets. There was a lot of studios on ranches. It's just a similar thing. So we thought we would cover that a lot of that in our entertainment section. But before then,
hmm
why are you ready to jump into spooky stuff?
I'm ready to jump into spooky stuff. We got a pretty good one today.
All right, guys. Well, enjoy this edition. This, as Ryan would put it, Rootin' Tootin' edition
That's right.
of spooky stuff.
The Thunderbird is a cryptozoological creature associated with large bird-like animals that live anywhere from northern Canada and Alaska down to Central America. Similar animals often appear in Native American mythology and old American Western tales. Some tales tell of enormous eagles strong enough to carry whales back to their nests. Since pioneers began moving west across the North American plains, sightings of large birds have been reported. Native tribes across North America, especially along the Pacific coast and in the Great Lakes area, have stories depicting enormous birds of prey. Some stories told that these birds were so large and powerful that when they flapped their wings, thunder was created.
Yeah, which is actually kind of interesting because our school mascot is the Thunderbird. And I always wondered why the Thunderbirds, because to me that was always a Western thing. But there you go. It
So it's a
flew
Great
over the
Lakes
Great
thing.
Lakes too.
Yeah.
Yeah. Touche, school mascot namers.
Yeah, not too bad.
Yeah.
It
all
makes
right.
more sense now.
Yeah.
That I'm 37. Lightning flashed out of their eyes, and water fell off their backs, creating rain. The tribes used thunderbirds to explain some of the things that happen naturally, such as storms and other forms of weather. The legend of the Passamaquoddies, for example, describes
Okay, that was pretty good. I could see, like, Ryan took a breath and he had this whole body language of just like looking at this word, like, all right, you're gonna do this, man.
I did it.
Yeah, you well done.
Thank you. For example, describes the quest of two Native Americans in search of the source of thunder high in the mountains. Other stories said that there was a thunderbird who battled an enormous killer whale. When the two beasts fought, they destroyed much of the land, knocking down trees and causing much destruction.
I mean, it kind of seems like a big allegory for crazy storms, right? Like there's
Yeah.
lightning, there's wind, everything gets destroyed. And I imagine because you're a human and, native dwellings weren't stone structures for the most part. So I imagine that you were hiding when there was a crazy storm. You come out during the morning, all these trees, everything's ripped up. It's probably really easy to remember, think that two giant birds were fighting in the sky.
Yeah.
Especially, there was flashes of light and you're like, holy crap, the Thunderbirds are kicking each other's butts.
Pretty much. That's what this sounds like, definitely, when it comes to the legend. Although dangerous and powerful beings, Thunderbirds were also seen as benevolent nature spirits, and they sometimes assisted the tribes in their search for food during periods of famine. The igneous rocks known as thunderstones are the eggs of these creatures, according to some legends.
Oh, that's fun.
The
Oh, so
night-
maybe it is true, and it's like that. We just need a Khaleesi, right? We need a very attractive naked person to carry them into a fire, and then boom, got Thunderbirds. We brought 'em
Thunderbirds are back.
We brought them back.
There we go.
It's like Reign of Fire with dragons, except it's Thunderbirds with Khaleesi.
That's right. Just don't kill her best friend now.
Yeah.
Then she'll burn the whole town down.
Burn it down.
That's what happened. That's what happened. I kind of sympathize. I understand. Dude, I would burn down a town for you, Joe.
Right? I mean, I would at least burn down, I don't know, like a neighborhood.
Khaleesi.
I mean, okay, for anyone listening to this in the future,
We are
just in
joking.
case, yeah.
We are
If
joking.
I'm on trial for arson at any point, not real.
Not real. So, back to the Thunderbird.
Cover your ass. People get fired for tweets they do 10 years ago, so
I
I'm
know.
just saying.
The 1977 Lawndale, Illinois Thunderbird attack was a reported attack by two unidentified birds on a young boy. The attack occurred on July 25th, 1977. 10-year-old Marlon Lowe was playing outside when he suddenly was attacked by two large birds, one of which temporarily picked him up and carried him over 30 feet before Marlon's mother, Ruth Lowe, ran to her son's rescue, chasing the birds away and then recovering her traumatized son. So maybe she threw something at it.
How old is this kid?
10.
10? How is he the smallest 10-year-old? I mean, I get the Thunderbird is supposed to be giant, but this is 1977. So either there actually was a giant Thunderbird
Mm-hmm.
or this kid was like 2 and they elaborated.
I mean, if
Or
these things
exaggerated.
are big and trying to pick them off,
I mean, they have this story of like eagles and stuff picking up people's pets. Like you imagine you're
Mhm.
taking Fluffy for a walk
Oh,
and
man.
just gets taken away.
Oh, and I've seen pretty big birds of prey in my neighborhood now. I've seen American bald eagles and stuff like that nesting.
What?
So, oh yeah, I have totally seen American bald eagles like in my neighborhood, like over between Monroe and Temperance.
I don't think there's bald eagles in Michigan.
Oh,
It's
no,
like
there totally is,
The
dude.
white head bald
Mhm.
eagle?
Mm-hmm. I've seen them.
You know what? We're on a show where we discuss like whether or not aliens are real, and the hardest thing I have to believe is that you've seen a bald eagle.
Oh, dude, no,
But
they're
fair enough, man. I'll give
No,
you the
they're
benefit
doing-
of the doubt.
they're doing well. They're doing better.
All right.
So back to Thunderbirds, not American bald eagles. Reportedly, several eyewitnesses had seen the attack take place. The birds were described as having a white ring around their necks.
Not too bad of an ass either. Every episode, I'm going to find a way to just put that in there now.
You have to. A 4.5-foot body with each wing approximately 4 feet long, a 6-inch hooked bill, 3 front claws, 1 back claw, and a large black body. Sightings of large bird-like creatures have been reported for many years, at least since people began settling further west in the United States and Canada. One of the most famous reports is from 1890, when 2 Arizona cowboys claimed to have shot and killed a large bird. It was described as having no feathers, and it had a head similar to that of an alligator.
Interesting.
The-
See, that's fun, right?
Mhm.
That's where we come into where they're starting to be like maybe it was a dinosaur.
Right. The 2 men supposedly dragged the dead bird back to the town after killing it. The report seems to suggest that this creature looked more like a pterodactyl or a
Yep.
dragon than a modern-day bird.
There you go. So it was clearly a dinosaur or an alien.
Yes, and that's why I like that was in this article, and I was excited to read it because yes, that brings a whole new thing This whole time you're thinking a big bird, right?
Yeah.
Well, what if it was just
A surviving.
a surviving pterosaur of sorts? Like it's totally believable.
I mean, why not? There's the whole Nessie is possibly a dinosaur. Which one is that? The point is a
Yeah,
water-dwelling dinosaur.
plesiosaur,
Yeah, I think so. Why not?
the water-dwelling flipper dudes.
Well, you think about the even now, parts of the American Southwest are just desert. They're just long, empty spaces, right?
Mhm.
So back then, even more so. Why couldn't there be a species living up in the mountains somewhere of pterosaur that survived?
Mm-hmm. I agree.
I like that. That is my I choose that one, Ryan. Continue. That is my I agree with this theory.
Today, cryptozoologists usually refer to Thunderbird legends in the same way as any flying cryptids, such as the Kangamato, the Rock, and the Ropin, and even sometimes the Jersey Devil. These flying creatures are often associated with modern day
Is it rock
pterosaurs.
or rook? It's ROC, right?
Yeah,
Okay, because when you first read that, I'm thinking I just like imagined all like this, and then I saw Dwayne Johnson flapping his arms
the
up.
Rock.
Yeah, the rock's up there.
That's right.
Yeah.
You're
What?
welcome.
He lifts up one eyebrow and he's just like, "Hey,
That's
I'm the
right.
best cryptid."
That's right. That was the people's eyebrow.
Exactly.
These flying creatures, including the Rock, are often associated with modern day pterosaurs. Many of the encounters with the creatures, including the Thunderbirds, are all described similarly. Quite often, the creatures are said to resemble pterosaurs, which were thought to be extinct for millions of years. In Algonquian images, an X shaped thunderbird is often used to depict the thunderbird with its wings alongside its body and the head facing forwards instead of in profile. The depiction may be stylized and simplified. A headless X shaped thunderbird was found in a Ojibwe Mediwiwin disc dating to 1250 to 1400 CE. In an 18th century manuscript, a daybook ledger written by the namesake grandson of Governor Matthew Mayhew, the Thunderbird pictograms varies from recognizable birds to simply an incised X.
Maybe just someone's a crappy drawer.
I mean, it's, we're talking ancient, so it's like they just use the X to depict it. You know what I mean? Like,
Well, what do we use to draw birds and seagulls in pictures when we're kids? We drew like an M.
I was going to say, like, yeah, you do, but more like, yeah, with a curve to it.
I love archaeology and I love anthropology. I love looking at these pictures, but it's so much interpretation sometimes that I mean, I realize that very smart people who spend their life researching it, like do their best, put their best foot theory forward, and it's probably true, but sometimes things get crazy wrong and it's hard. It's hard to imagine something that old and you see an X and you're like, oh, well, clearly that means it's a Thunderbird.
Right.
You're like, okay, fine. Why? I don't know. Maybe
No.
I'm being a little bit of an ass about it.
No, it's just yeah, it's us trying to figure it out. What the heck they were trying to say. Like it was obviously important enough that it's just been, the tale has been told and told, but it's also been depicted in so many different ways. Pretty cool.
Yeah, well, you know what? I think at the end of the day, what I say is if there was a creature, I do like the idea that it is a dinosaur, and I also believe it is a mixture of storms being like what is it, personified.
Yeah, trying to figure it out.
Yeah, exactly. We always joke about those weird legends that come up, but it's like people are just trying to figure out the world around them. We would all do it if we had our memories erased and we were just looking around and we saw these houses and our technology and we didn't know who did it. We might come up with a story of, oh, the gods did this.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
like why did Grandma get struck by lightning? Well, Billy, it's because a couple Thunderbirds were out there fighting with
Yeah.
with a whale.
Yeah,
They were fighting with a whale.
a whale in
And-
the sky. Why a whale? Well,
Grandma just got. We don't know. We don't ask.
fair enough.
And
All right,
it's-
never mind.
So
That's
yeah, so it's
history.
just like, yeah, it's history. It's true. It's all right. We already read it. The Thunderbird myth and motif is prevalent among Algonquian peoples in the Northeast, Eastern Canada, Ontario, Quebec, and eastward, and the Northeastern United States, the Iroquois peoples surrounding the Great Lakes. The discussion of the Northeast region has included Algonquian-speaking people in the lakes bordering U.S. Midwest states Ojibwe in Minnesota.
Yeah, so basically Thunderbirds were everywhere.
Yeah. In Algonquian mythology, the Thunderbird controls the upper world, while the underworld is governed by the underwater panther or a great horned serpent. The Thunderbird creates not just thunder with its wing flapping, but lightning bolts, which it casts at the underworld creatures. Thunderbird in this tradition may be depicted as a spread-eagled bird, wings horizontal, head in profile, but also quite common with the head facing forward, thus presenting an X-shaped appearance overall.
Okay, well there you go. That's why they
Yeah.
interpreted the X painting
Mhm.
as because this symbol of the Thunderbird, which is kind of like a spread eagle with their arms and
Right.
legs spread out and staring forward, zapping.
Dude,
Okay,
I mean,
but-
I imagine there could have been like a really big bird too back then, just an enormous fucker.
Well, why
You
not?
know, like could have been like a whole different, species. It could have been like, because we see different kinds where they're very similar, but one is just extra large.
Well, animals have gone extinct, recently. There's the
Mhm.
Tasmanian tiger, which people say still might exist, but they believe went extinct. There's the dodo bird. So yeah, there being a giant carnivorous bird in, all around the United States back then and has died out since is totally possible.
I want to
So I'm with
say,
you.
yeah, we've seen the end of the black rhino, I believe, or if I'm,
The white rhino?
or was it the white one? It was one of the two. We saw the end of a kind of rhino already in our lifetime, which is sad. You know
Yeah,
what I
it
mean?
is
Something
sad. It
something
is
that
sad.
awesome.
I think the Siberian or white tiger is another one that's super
Yeah.
endangered. I don't even want to think about how many species are going away. Hopefully we discover more. I don't know.
And so Thunderbird being just an enormous animal could possibly have died off and been killed off. Now we get to keep telling the tale, and in these tales now it shoots lightning and fights whales.
Yeah, why not?
It's awesome.
It is. And that is our way of easing you into the Western theme. Because to be fair, like I mentioned, the Thunderbird is all over the United States. It was really just kind of the terror store cowboy story that
Yeah.
kind of linked us to the Old West. But since we already had a little bit of our foot there, let's take a whole step forward and go into some haunted stories from the Old West. Ryan, take it away.
Dallas's Lady of the Lake. A young woman in wet clothes flagged down a couple near White Rock Lake in East Dallas to plead for a ride. The couple agreed and set out towards her destination, but she disappeared during the trip, leaving only a damp back seat. Confused, they went to the address, described the passenger to the man who opened the door, and explained the situation. Yes, the man said, he had a daughter who looked like that, but she drowned in the lake. Dallasites have been telling versions of this tale since at least the 1930s.
Ooh, I've heard of this one before, but how? Okay, if you were that dad, which that you lose a kid, you're depressed.
Yeah.
How horrible would you feel if people showed up and said that? Because you wouldn't believe. Oh my God, you saw my daughter's ghost. You would be like,
You're fucking with me.
Yeah, you read something online about this death, and you're just being horrible about it.
That's probably true,
Right? I guess back then it would be reading an obituary in the newspaper instead of online, but still, it's like, why are you torturing me?
There are trolls out there too, so
You-
it would have happened.
You
Like
teenagers
old
are
school.
awful.
Yeah, old school trolling.
Oh my God. So then that guy murders those people.
Yeah.
And then goes on a rampage. And we have a whole horror movie about this guy. It's a flimsy premise, I'll
Yeah.
give you, but so is like the Christmas one where the guy's like, Santa killed my parents, so now
It's-
I kill people. I mean, I'm just saying.
Yeah.
He goes on a rampage, and then at the end, the twist is his daughter's ghost is like, dude. He's like, oh shit, you were real? Oh, I thought they were fucking with me. Oh, yeah, my bad.
Yeah.
Yep. Okay. Probably shouldn't have hunt down their families.
Probably shouldn't.
All
Probably
right.
shouldn't.
All right. Making a sequel would be tough, but that's not really our problem, Ryan.
No, it's not.
No. We sold the rights to New Line. They're going to do what they want. They're going to make Freddy's Revenge, whether we want them to or not.
Hey, why not? Why not?
Number 2.
Lower Yellowstone Falls. One of the best known of many supernatural tales from the area today known as Yellowstone National Park is that of the Lower Falls, where 1870 an expedition of 5 militiamen and a crow guide gave chase to a small band of Native Americans who stole pack horses from the explorers. The militiamen caught up with the thieves just as they were attempting to cross the river above the falls on a thrown-together raft of driftwood. After a brief exchange of gunfire, The militiamen realized the Indians on the raft were doomed. Indeed, before they disappeared over the falls, the band's women began wailing and the braves chanted a death song that's supposedly sometimes heard by visitors today.
Ooh, that one's creepy. I mean, how crappy would that be? Like, you're trying to get away, and then it's like all of a sudden, it's like, oh no, we don't have to do anything. They're going over that waterfall, man. Just, oh, we rafted too close. We're screwed.
Why am I just thinking of Ace Ventura 2? Spike! Spike!
Oh no.
Oh man, over the falls. Over the falls. Just like,
I mean, it's not like, what is it? It's not like Niagara Falls, right? Where they went over on a barrel. Like a bunch of people
Yeah.
actually did that. So I don't know Yellowstone waterfalls. How bad could it be? I mean, they were all dead.
I mean,
so-
yeah, if it was enough to kill them and that they were singing a freaking death song and they're just like, we're just gonna go ahead and sing this forever. It
yeah.
had to be pretty bad.
It's kind of a badass move, right? It's like the guy who lights the cigarette before the bomb goes off because it's just like, well, nothing
Yep.
I could do.
Yep.
Oh, but why were their wives on the sideline watching them die? Why were they there in the first place? They were just like, hey, we're gonna go kill these people. Let's bring our wives to watch. Yeah,
I mean, they were
they
all.
were Indians.
I mean, back then, when you were traveling, you brought your family with you. Like there was tons of wagons.
all right, fair enough. Maybe I was reading too much into it. All right, continue.
Philmont Scout Ranch Tales. Did I
Number
ever tell
three.
you?
Number 3.
Did I ever tell you that I went to Philmont Scout Ranch? That was where I hiked. I'm not exaggerating. 96 miles in 2 weeks.
Oh my God.
I'm not exaggerating.
Did you see any ghostly haunted stuff?
I heard it was pretty spooky out there. I'm not gonna lie.
Huh.
So it's interesting. I didn't know you had this in here. So Philmont Scout Ranch Tales. Some ghost stories associated with the huge wilderness hiking area owned by the Boy Scouts of America near Cimarron, New Mexico, were the invention of rangers hoping to scare hikers into taking safety precautions seriously. But long before Campfire Tales' apocryphal Lost Scout could have hiked it, Navajo people supposedly believed the Anasazi left pictographs warning the property's Eureka Mesa was host to an otherworldly portal and that it was guarded by a supernatural shaman.
Ooh.
So I could have been hiking with a supernatural shaman, Joe.
Well, what did you see? You said, was it spooky?
There were spooky spots. It was in 2003, and we hiked a lot, and sometimes over 10 miles a day, and it was crazy, man.
All right, but no, like actual UFO or seeing Bigfoot or anything. I mean, I imagine if you had seen something like that, it would have come up in this show earlier. But still,
No, I didn't see anything like that, and I did go to like really high elevation. We went, it's like called like Mount Baldy. They have their own Mount Baldy, everybody does. And you get really high up and it's crazy. You could see like everything. It was like 14,000, something like that. Something crazy.
wow. Do the Boy Scouts still own the area?
I believe so. Yeah.
Oh, I know they filed for bankruptcy a little bit ago, so I didn't know. 'Cause
Yeah, I don't even know because now they're called Scouting America. So I've been out of the game for a long time.
fair enough. But you made it to Eagle.
Yeah, I did. Made it to Eagle, but no, I can't say I heard anything while I was there. Of
You
course,
didn't see
I heard,
the shamans.
but I didn't see no shaman.
Number 4.
Miss Kate's room at the Sheridan Inn. Not all Wild West related hauntings are attributed to restless spirits whose earthly bodies met violent ends. The kindly spirit of a longtime employee is said to guard the historic Sheridan Inn in Sheridan, Wyoming, where guests and staff have reported inexplicable cold spots, flickering lights, and footsteps. Kate Arnold, or Miss Kate, worked at the hotel for 64 years, living there for most of that time, and her ashes were placed in a wall in her room 306, which is available for guests after her death.
See, that doesn't really bother me. There's 3 dead people in my living room right now. So
Good to know.
yeah. But I just imagine, to be clear, we're talking about remains and ashes.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, no.
I don't.
No,
actually,
he
I have
just has a-
propped up dead bodies.
Yeah, you know what I mean? Hey,
It's
he,
fine.
he's in mourning.
I mean, I am a scientist.
That's right for science.
But no, I could see that though being a little creepy. I would might stay in that room. You know what I mean? I could see probably a lot of ghost hunters staying in that room and like trying to talk. But if she lived that long in that room, she's probably comfortable as heck. So maybe she'd want you out. So maybe there would be some spooky stuff.
I mean, yeah, just stuff flickering, some cold spots is all it says. And, her just kind of walking around, doing her rounds. You know what I mean? Just
You just hear a little whisper.
Get the fuck out of here.
housekeeping.
Housekeeping. Creepy. Number 5.
The haunted St. James Hotel in Cimarron, New Mexico. First known as the Lambert Inn when it was built in 1872. The St. James Hotel guest room, saloon, and restaurant were popular with cowboys, gamblers, lawmen, and outlaws.
Everybody liked that place.
But gained such a violent reputation that who was killed at Lambert's last night became a popular conversation starter in the area. Several spirits are said to haunt the hotel, manifesting in ways ranging from the smell of cigar smoke or perfume and the feeling being watched, to objects being moved to apparitions of people in 19th century attire.
Okay, so that could be a ghost, or it could just be cigar smoke and
Mhm.
perfume soaked into the wood. Being watched is because there's a creepy caretaker who likes to be, a creep.
Yeah,
And
he's watching
he's
you.
watching you. He's watching you. It happens, but you don't sit in a hotel and not expect to get looked at naked. That's just.
He works for free. We just let him live here.
Oh my god. But yeah, no, that is fun. Can you imagine going to a bar that's just like casually? There's a few people from high school. You're like, yeah, like 4 people got shot here. Let's go drink.
Yeah, well, I mean, in their memory, right?
It's kind of a badass move. Now you got to wonder, is it just like, I'm not afraid and I'm going to go to this bar? Or is it just like, well, it is the only bar. Like, what are we going to do? Not drink?
It's like, yeah, it's the salty spittoon from SpongeBob. Like, how tough are you? How tough am I?
How tough are you? Let's just jump into disclosure discussion.
Disclosure discussion. Ha 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 ha. It's about aliens and stuff.
All right, well, moving right along, keeping it with our theme today in the old American Wild West. Disclosure discussion today is going to take place in Aurora, Texas, and their 1897 alien gravesite.
This comes to us from atlasobscura.com.
While it receives no fanfare today, the small town of Aurora, Texas, was once the Roswell of its day after a well-publicized UFO crash in the area, and the pilot of the spacecraft is said to still be buried in the local cemetery. According to a story run, a mystery airship came sailing out of the sky, smashing through a windmill belonging to Judge J.S. Proctor, before finally crashing into the ground. The debris also destroyed the good judge's flower garden.
Just to add insult to injury.
What a shame. Unfortunately, the pilot was also killed in the collision, but locals were
But his flowers, Ryan.
I know about the flowers.
Those were my daffodils.
So unfortunately, the pilot was also killed in the collision, but locals were able to drag what was described as a petite and Martian body from the wreckage. The body was supposedly buried under a tree branch of the Aurora Cemetery, observing good Christian rites. So
Well,
they gave him full burial.
That makes sense. I mean, because of who which house and flower garden he destroyed. I mean, that's
Yeah, the
the
judge.
kind of guy who's going to give you a good old Christian burial.
Right. He didn't mean nothing. As the story goes, the locals placed a headstone on the spot with a crude etching of the alien ship on it. Although no evidence of this, hoax or no, exists. However, a more modern version of this apocryphal gravestone did eventually appear, placed under the tree in the spot the body was supposedly buried. UFO enthusiasts even began petitioning the cemetery to exhume the spot.
That makes sense, right? Because if there's like, no, really, there's an alien body buried right there. You have to be a little bit curious as a scientist. Be like, great, let me see it. Let me see an alien skeleton. Let me see some alien DNA. Give me. If there's seriously an alien body right there, this could solve a question that mankind has been asking for thousands upon thousands of probably millions of years.
Yes, and I don't understand why. And then they're gonna like what? They're gonna like dig it up and
I would do DNA tests.
do you think it'll be there?
Well, I think they already moved it.
That's what I think.
Yeah, no, I think that's like an update on this actual article. But back in the day, I could see like wanting proof. Now, granted, if you actually had evidence that an alien existed, chances are it would be covered up. I mean, that's just how I feel. But
That's
yeah,
how it usually goes.
yeah, I don't know.
So far, the request has been denied. Today, the alien's headstone has been stolen, but all traces of the Wild West alien spot are not lost. The Texas State historical marker that commemorates the cemetery still mentions the Martian burial among the other honored and real dead burial at the site. Update as of May 2024. It has been declared that ET has gone home. A local committee has decided that tourism doesn't have a place on holy ground and has voted to remove the stone and the mementos. All that is left under the tree now is a bare dirt patch where the boulder used to lay.
Okay, but they didn't say anything about moving the body, right? And if they're so worried about, holy ground not having tourists, then they're not going to dig up a body. So they got rid of all markers, but that body is probably still there.
It's probably still there
if it was ever there.
Yeah, and I like to think that it was.
I think it is.
Yeah.
Ryan, we can't say on this podcast because it would be admissible in court. But wink at me if you want to go dig up this body at some point. Hold on.
I would never.
All right. That you heard it here, guys. We're not gonna do that.
Because who wouldn't want? I wouldn't want to know that.
I don't know, man. It's weird to think about. Death in general. It's a big deal, obviously, and people all over the world have different ways of dealing with it. There's like Tibetan monks, and I might have my countries wrong. There might be China. I don't know. Could be somewhere else. But there are monks out there who like mummify themselves with this like weird tea and like try to preserve their bodies in place. A lot of the way we treat bodies after death has always changed. And our next story is kind of about that. Here's a really weird tale on this week's
Real World Weird.
The Case of the Traveling Corpse. This comes to us from listverse.com. Wannabe outlaw Elmer McCurdy robbed a passenger train in Oklahoma in 1911. He thought the train was transporting thousands of dollars for banks in the state, and he could get away with a nice amount of loot. Unfortunately for him, the train had no bank bullion. Even worse, McCurdy got away with just $46 in total from the robbery.
I mean, to be fair, $46 was a lot more money back then, but still,
Not worth it.
No.
Not as if that wasn't bad enough. Oklahoma lawmen shot him to death shortly after, tracking him down days later.
So definitely not worth the $46.
But all that is the normal part of this story. Things only started to get weird after McCurdy was killed by fed-up law enforcement officers. We even have a photo here. It's pretty creepy. First, McCurdy's corpse was embalmed with a standard arsenic preparation. Then it was sold to a traveling carnival.
As one does. Can you imagine living in a time where it's like the guy who embalms you is just like, well, he's got no family, no one wants it. I'm going to just sell this body.
To the carnies.
Yeah. Hey, guys, you want a dead body?
They're like, and how?
Do
Do we?
I've been waiting to hear that.
Hot dog. The carnies wanted to make some money off McCurdy's reputation as an outlaw, so they traveled with the body and displayed it at fairs as a sideshow for 6 decades. McCurdy's body was bought, sold, and bought again by various county fair outfits roaming across the Midwest. Haunted houses and wax museums even got in on the market too, with the late outlaw's corpse changing hands over to some of them too.
I mean, it's just amazing, right? Because can you imagine, like, well, when I was alive, I spent my whole life in Kentucky. But after I died, I saw the world.
And it's just because he was a very unsuccessful
Outlaw.
outlaw.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, to be fair, he did rob a train and did get some money. But I don't know if he outlawed before then. But if that was his first outlaw, and yeah, tough debut.
Yeah, not too good. Not too good. After more than 60 years on the move and having brought in way more money than he ever stole while alive,
That's true.
the long dead McCurdy
To add insult to injury, right?
Yeah, right.
Like we made more in one day selling tickets to see your dead body than you could make in your entire life.
Yep.
Let that sink in, Ryan.
You're worth more dead than alive.
I think we've all felt like that.
Oh boy. So, yes, than he ever stole while alive, obviously. The long dead McCurdy wound up in an amusement park funhouse in Long Beach, California. The year was 1976.
It makes sense because I've spent a lot of time in Long Beach. I got to see their freak show, and I could see that happening.
Or or in a Ripley's Believe It or Not museum or something like that.
Exactly.
The year was 1976, and television producers had come to the park to film scenes for the $6 Million Man. During filming, with McCurdy's body being used as a prop, a finger, or by some accounts, the entire arm.
The story I heard was a whole arm broke
fell off.
Yeah.
Fell off. Yes. It's pretty gross.
I mean, it kind of, right? Like you see a hunk of meat laying on the ground, you're like, oh, well, my God, it's a hunk of meat. But then if you see beef jerky, you're like, oh, well, it's beef jerky. So it depends.
Yeah.
Like how gross is a disembodied arm, I guess.
Pretty gross.
I mean, if it's dry and it's, like paper mache, it's fine.
Yeah.
You never hung out at a prop house? There's some gross stuff, man.
It's got to smell. I don't care how much they embalmed them.
Does it smell after so long?
It's gotta, right?
Well, I don't know. That's what I'm asking. Like, I imagine you unbury a frozen mastodon and it starts to rot again. That would smell. But then you get like dinosaur bones. They don't smell because, it's bone. It's calcified. It turned to rock, basically.
Yeah.
So it depends on how old. Well, this guy is only 150 years old.
Right.
Okay, so yeah, I guess he would probably smell, but he was embalmed. That's why he didn't rot the whole time he was traveling around. He was in circuses and stuff. Do you think they kept him in an air-conditioned box? No.
Probably, probably not.
So the smell may have already long passed.
Can you imagine the parties all the carnies had with him too?
Do you think it? No, that's too gross. Continue.
Los
Someone
Angeles.
had sex with that corpse.
No, you know what happened. The Los Angeles County Coroner's Office cried foul and had the body tested to confirm its provenance. Sure enough, it was that of McCurdy, who had died more than 65 years before in Oklahoma. Finally, good sense prevailed this time around. McCurdy's corpse was mercifully returned to the not-so-Wild West, and he was buried at long last in the famous Boot Hill Cemetery in Dodge City, Kansas. Finally put to rest.
I guess 60-something years was not as much as I thought. In my head, it was like 100 years. Like 67 years, okay, yeah, it would probably smell.
Yeah, it probably stunk. But I mean, finally put to rest. That's good because that's crazy.
That's weird.
That's weird.
That's real world weird.
It is.
Earthling Entertainment special report. Ryan died of dysentery. It says so on the tombstone. This has been an Earthling Entertainment special report.
Calling all comic fans, it's time to feed your brain at Green Brain Comics, where the freshest new issues, graphic novels, and manga hit the shelves every week. Whether you're looking for the hottest new series or the latest small press sensation, we've got it all. Every genre for every age, Green Brain Comics is your one-stop shop for all things graphic storytelling. Got questions? Our friendly staff knows their stuff. Whether you're a longtime fan or new to the world of comics, we've got recommendations that'll keep you coming back for more. And don't forget to check out our special events. Green Brain Comics is not just a store, it's a community. Located in East Downtown Dearborn, we are at Green Brain Comics on Facebook, Instagram, and YouTube. Shop online at greenbraincomics.com, and remember to feed your brain at Green Brain Comics.
It's true, you made it through to the second half of the show.
Well, like that annoying voice just said, you are in the second part of the show. And normally what we would do here is music mumbles and headlines and all this fun pop culture stuff. But because we're on the cowboy theme kick, we thought, what entertainers, what people were watching or, doing to occupy their time back in the Old West. And we came across a bunch of different stories, a lot of shows involving lassos and rodeo stuff. And it was cool. It was all good. But then we came across a performer who just, it kept popping up. And then the more we learned about this person, the more badass they
Yeah.
became. And it kind of ties into pop culture in a weird way. So I thought we would do this, which we don't really have a little song for, but we're calling it Entertainment in the Old West.
Kitty Leroy, celebrity badass. This comes to us from legendsofamerica.com. Most people have heard of the 27 Club. Maybe it's a coincidence. Maybe it's a curse that only affects those of certain popularity. But in any case, a number of celebrities seemingly died at this age of 27 for a multitude of reasons. Kurt Cobain, Amy Winehouse, Jimi Hendrix, Jim Morrison, Janis Joplin, Robert Johnson, Aaliyah, just to name a few. Turns out, this isn't just a 20th century phenomenon. Entertainer Kitty Leroy did it before it was cool and could possibly be the most badass of the bunch.
Yeah.
A gunfighter, gambler, performer, and alleged prostitute. Kitty Leroy, born in 1850, was best known as one of the most proficient poker players in the Old West. Thought to have been from Michigan,
Yeah.
she was performing as a dancer by the age of 10. And as she got older, she began to work in dance halls and saloons, where she picked up several other skills, specifically proficiency with weapons and at games of chance.
Hanging out at the casino. Makes sense. I mean, it's a saloon, but I'm just saying.
When she married her first husband, legend has it that he was the only man in town with the nerve to let her shoot apples off his head. But Kitty was restless, and wanting to take her show on the road, she headed to Texas, leaving her husband behind.
Bye.
By the age of 20, she was said to have been one of the most popular entertainers in Dallas, Texas. However, she soon gave up dancing to become a faro dealer, which was noted for never having going to the faro tables without several knives and revolvers.
You got to keep people honest, Ryan.
Her skills with weapons and gambling proficiency became legendary, as well as her mode of dress, which ranged from dressing like a man to extravagant gypsy-like attire. While in Texas, she acquired a second husband, and the two soon headed to California.
I just, yeah, weird dresser.
Yeah,
And it's pretty normal for an entertainer. I
Yeah.
mean, you look at Prince. Can you imagine Prince in the Old West? Like, I'm a cowboy.
That's right.
And
That's right.
that man was a genius, and he
Mhm.
dressed crazy. So, and honestly, dressing like a man back then, all that really means is she wore pants. Like, you know what I mean?
I was gonna say, yeah,
Like,
it's pretty quite simple.
That's not that bad, especially if you want to ride a horse. Because, like, what do? You're either riding side saddle or you wear pants.
Right. Right. A third marriage apparently took place somewhere along the line. A man she was said to have married due to a guilty conscience. In this incident,
Oh, I love this story.
the story tells us that when the man became too ardent in his affections for her, she challenged him to a fight. She donned men's clothing when he refused to fight a woman and challenged him again. She then allegedly shot him, and as he lay wounded, called for a preacher and married him before he died. When the,
This sounds just like the most erratic behavior, right? Like, it's like, I love you. And she's like, I'll fight you.
yeah, let's do this.
But I love you. I'm not going to fight you. You're a woman. I'm dressed like a man now.
yeah.
I'm not going to. Oh, you shot me. All right, I'll marry you.
Say I do.
like, okay. At least give him the night. Like, he didn't even get his wedding night.
Yeah.
You know what he got? He got shot and then got married. At least it'll say, like, in his obituary, like, he did not die alone. He
That's
was
right.
held by his loving wife as he passed away.
Yeah, good old Kitty. When the Black Hills Gold Rush began in South Dakota, Kitty made her way to the thriving boomtown of Deadwood, arriving on the same wagon train that brought Wild Bill and Calamity Jane to the camp in 1876. She soon opened the Mint Gambling Saloon, where she met her fourth husband, a German prospector who made a rich gold strike.
Fourth time the charm.
Right. However, when the Germans' gold ran out, so did Kitty's interest.
Okay, well, that tracks, right? There's a lot of gold. Like, that's where she's an actual gold digger, Ryan.
Quite literally.
Huh.
She was then said to have hit him over the head with a bottle before kicking him out of their home and her life.
But if you marry the chick who her last husband she was married to for 5 minutes after she shot him, maybe that's on you.
That's kind of on you.
Yeah, I mean, I don't care if you are a man or a woman. Don't marry someone who killed their last partner. Just probably not a great idea.
On June 11th, 1877, Kitty married her fifth husband, Samuel R. Curley, in Deadwood. But for Kitty, this would be a fatal mistake. Curley was a jealous man, and after numerous arguments over alleged affairs with a former husband and others such as Wild Bill and Sam Bass, he killed her on December 7, 1877, in the Lone Star Saloon before turning the gun on himself. The following day, the townspeople allegedly laid out the pair for viewing inside the saloon before they were buried together. A journalist later said of the 27-year-old that she had 5 husbands, 7 revolvers, a dozen Bowie knives, and always went armed to the teeth.
Yeah, I mean that's pretty cool. They're gonna be like, Joe, he read comics, so I mean, like, nice. Yeah.
There is no evidence that Kitty was a prostitute, but as many of the Deadwood saloons had offered those services, she very well may have been a madam. She had a daughter somewhere along the line, as Deadwood newspapers of the time indicate that her estate was left to her daughter.
So somewhere down the line, can you imagine? Your great grandma was a freaking crazy cowboy badass. I mean, they call it the Wild West, right? She was like,
she was all over.
She was all over the place, man. She's a performer. She's a gambler. I mean,
and only before 27.
I know. Doesn't it make you just feel like you have dropped the ball, Ryan?
A little bit.
How many husbands have you had, Ryan?
Well, I've only been married once, Joe.
Because you could have 5 by now.
That's right. I'm really behind here.
Well, yeah, and I know as a fact that I haven't seen you shoot anyone or gamble.
Well, I gambled.
Okay, you've gambled a little bit.
But I'm not that good at it.
Me either. If I go to a casino, it's going to be like, all right, I'm going to play one hand of blackjack. I'm going to come back. It's going to be like a walk-off screen. Then I'll just come immediately back and I'll have no shirt on.
That's right.
Yeah, that's my...
And it wasn't in that article, but I did read a thing about Kitty Leroy that she was often fighting with her other performers as well. Like if she had like a dance partner, like she was known to be throwing shit at them like backstage. Like you'd be hearing her going off.
I mean, honestly, this woman sounds like she just had a severe case of bipolar. Like she was just nuts, which, wouldn't be diagnosed back then. But hell, she was able to live her life and be feisty. So more power to her. That is the most cowboy thing that I've ever heard.
Yeah, she is one hell of a cowgirl.
And as far as like the last husband being like, you slept with Wild Bill Hickok. It was Wild Bill Hickok. Just sorry. That's like
badass, yeah.
I mean, that's just like, hey, Ryan, Anya Taylor-Joy showed up in town. And it's like, did you sleep with Anya Taylor-Joy, Ryan? Well, a little. like what? I'm just saying.
We love movies on this podcast, so we figured while we're covering the Old West, why don't we talk about a few sci-fi or Western-style movies that are about the American Old West?
Well, kind of, right? It's the connection. It's let's talk about Old West films in the sci-fi genre, or the sci-fi films in the Old West genre.
When thinking of different genres of film, the two that seem most diametrically apart are science fiction and westerns. However, these two worlds come together more often than you might realize. Here are Earthling Entertainment's top 5 science fiction western films. Quick disclaimer, the movies on this list have been chosen for no other reason than enjoyably and ranked only by our experience while watching them. This is not a list of critically best films or rating overall quality. That being said, enjoy.
That's right. So no one sit there and be like, your number 1 was the dumbest movie in the whole world. It's about the enjoyment factor, guys.
Number 5, Westworld.
That's right.
A robot malfunction creates havoc and terror for unsuspecting vacationers at a futuristic adult-themed amusement park.
That's right. Have you seen this one? Have you seen
I
the
don't think
Westworld
I
movie?
have. No.
It's a good movie. It came out in the 70s. It was kind of like it went with that sci-fi bleakness that a lot of 70s movies did. And they had a sequel too, called Future World. And then famously a few years ago, they did a show on HBO called Westworld, and it lasted 3 seasons.
That I've heard of.
Yes. Well, I watched the first season and it was really good. It's definitely like a more heady take on the story. It and just based on the first season, which is all I saw, it seems like it worked as like a prequel to the Westworld movie. But it lasted 3 seasons and it went out with a whimper, and they canceled it before they
Huh.
ended it. So I never wanted to watch the other seasons because they ended it. They canceled it. You know what I mean? It's just gonna
Yeah.
be so I don't know. The first season was really critically acclaimed, but then I never heard anyone really talk about it after that. So I think it fell off.
I heard about it. I knew it was a show. I didn't know it was a movie first.
Yeah, you know what's funny is if you ever watch it, you're gonna get some Family Guy references that you may not have gotten before.
Oh, that's funny.
Yeah,
That happened to me like when I watched Star Trek, and it's
you watched the original Star Trek because you watched the whole
Mhm.
series, right?
Yeah, and it's funny. I love how Star Trek viewed going to different planets. They just assumed that like every planet would go through the same exact phases that we did. Like they would go to a planet and there was like a Western planet because it was like it in their development on that planet. Like it's
They,
just a bunch of normal people, like not like aliens, not like Star Wars. You
but
know
they
what I
had
mean?
they had their own Western version.
Yeah.
Yeah, fair
And I
enough.
think they went back to like Rome. Like they did that a lot where they'd go to a planet and be like, oh, they're only in this phase of their
Of
like
their development.
as if everybody's gonna go through the same thing Earth did.
Well, to be fair, like we mentioned earlier, they had every studio had Western sets and Western costumes. So of course Star Trek went to an old West planet because we
Yeah.
have all the sets.
Yeah, we've got the
We
set.
got all the costumes. But yeah, Westworld, I do recommend. It is the number 5 on the list, but it's a good one.
This next one's I think everyone knows this one. Number 4, Back to the Future Part 3.
Yeah.
Stranded in 1955, Marty McFly learns about the death of Doc Brown in 1885 and must travel back in time to save him. With no fuel readily available for the DeLorean, the two must figure out how to escape the Old West before Emmett is murdered.
Wow, wow, wow.
That was a great one.
It was. I can't imagine there's anyone listening to the show who's never watched Back to the Future Part 3. But it was a good one. It was a choice, right? The first one takes place in the 1950s. The second one takes place in like 2015, and the third one takes place in 1885.
Yeah.
I got it. You have present day kind of, then you have future, then you have past, then you just.
Mhm.
I just. Once again, was it because we had all the sets? Or did the creators really love the Old West that much? I know we set it up because Emmett Brown's character of the Doc loved the Old West, but it's like you have a time machine, and I just could have. I remember watching it as a kid, wanting them to go somewhere deeper. I wanted to see. Maybe not. I'm sure it was dinosaurs because I was a kid.
Like you'd think like Doc Brown would want to go visit Tesla or something. Like Nikola,
Yeah. Oh
like
yeah.
actual
Nikola Tesla. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Maybe. See, that makes sense. Like I want to meet Einstein and have a chat with him.
Yeah, that makes more sense.
I don't know. Well, he wouldn't need a time machine really, because I think Einstein was still alive in 1955. But still.
Yeah, but still. But no, I remember it well. I remember as a kid, like it made like I never questioned it. I was just like, oh, of course they're they have a time machine, so they're in the West. That makes sense.
Fair enough.
Like you know what I mean? Like I was like, eh.
Well, the best was there was a Million Ways to Die in the West, which was
It was
Seth
great.
MacFarlane made that film. And he's the creator of Family Guy and Ted and what have you. But they had a Easter egg that kind of implied that it was in the same town as Back to the Future 3 because the main character comes across Emmett Doc Brown.
Mhm.
Yeah,
Yep.
that was probably the best cameo. I wish they spoiled it in the trailers. I remember that. It
Yeah.
really pissed me off.
No, they do that a lot with trailers. They spoil a lot. Like I wanted to show my parents Smile, and they watched the trailer, and literally the trailer like shows like every reveal of like every creepy scene there is in the whole movie. I'm like, oh, look, that kind of ruins it.
You know what? It's because the filmmakers are not the ones that cut the trailer. They send the footage to a trailer house, and a different company basically says, "Okay, how do we sell this film?" And their whole point is, how do we get butts in seats? They don't care about, oh, we're giving away a third act reveal.
Like they totally did. Like
Yeah.
so many of the I was like, oh, I'm like that's arguably was the scariest scene because you didn't know that person was, you know what I mean, like evil or whatever. It's like,
But now you're saying, but maybe there's something to said about it being out of context, right? Like, how much of
Yeah.
the trailer do you remember when you watched the movie?
See, that's the thing is like, yeah, I don't remember. I don't even know if I ever saw the trailer to Smile before I saw that one. But I mean, often, I mean, you're right. It depends, right? It depends. But anyways,
that is our number 4 pick.
right. So number 3 is another big one, which evidently flopped. You were telling me, but I mean, I heard good things. I thought number 3 is Cowboys and Aliens.
Cowboys and Aliens, perfect for this show. Jon Favreau directed that one.
Yeah. A spaceship arrives in 1873 Arizona to take over the Earth, starting with the Wild West region. All that stands in their way, a posse of cowboys and natives.
Yeah, it's a fun ride. A lot of people obviously didn't do well. A lot of people didn't like it. I liked it. Olivia Wilde was great in it. I think Daniel Craig as a cowboy is kind of funny because he's like a very British man.
Yeah.
But it was cool, and it's based on a comic. I have no familiarity with the comic, but I did like the movie. But I gotta be honest, I tend to like these grand adventures that sometimes don't do well commercially. So I'm not surprised. But you said you thought it was good. Harrison Ford's in that one.
I
man.
remember, like, yeah, I started it off, and I don't know. I think I was on a plane, and I might have fallen asleep, honestly. But I remember watching it and thinking it was sweet. It looks cool, and yeah, Harrison Ford's awesome in it. And
maybe it was weird pacing, or maybe I don't know. Maybe the story wasn't that strong. But I just it is forgettable. Something about that movie just does not like as much as I know I enjoy it. I can't beat by beat tell you exactly what happened. I know Harrison Ford's son was kind of a prick, and I know he had like a Indian buddy who was kind of a surrogate son.
okay,
And Daniel Craig, there was a mystery because he had like an alien thing wrapped around.
yeah,
his
he has like
wrist.
this wristband thing that shoots shit.
Yeah, and spoilers for this movie, so don't get mad. I'm telling you, here's a second. Fast forward 30 seconds or whatever. Spoiler. Olivia Wilde's character turns out to be an alien.
Oh,
I remember that happened.
cool.
Yeah. So it's all right. And this was when Olivia Wilde was also like the hottest new thing out there as far as actresses were concerned.
Yeah. Well, and this next one I actually feel, but it's probably just nostalgia. But
Number 2 on our list.
I know this one really well because of when it came out. I loved it. Wild Wild West.
Wild Wild West.
It's such a controversial movie, right? Like it's like I remember when I was a kid when I saw it, I thought it was awesome. I loved it. At the time Will Smith was hot, you know what I mean? Like I thought he was
Will
funny.
Smith is so hot right now.
You know what I mean? Like he was funny, and I liked his
Kevin
humor in it.
Kliner's great in it.
Yeah, he was awesome in it.
The mechanical spider. And so when this movie first came out, I agree with you. I was the right age.
Yeah.
So them fighting a giant mechanical robot steampunk spider, I was like, yeah, this totally tracks.
And just the humor of it, like where he's like, "Why is it not Levanting?" And then you just get like the Will Smith scream into the ravine as it finally, comes up, and they're able to get it.
You're talking about the scene where they are driving off a cliff on a bicycle plane
Yes.
mechanism, and
And all of his inventions suck, like throughout the whole movie.
Kevin Kline's character is an inventor, and so that it was a wild movie. But that's why all those little things you just said. That's why it was a sci-fi film, because science fiction. The stuff he was doing wasn't real science, therefore science fiction.
It was very steampunk,
It was
quite literally.
I like famously Kevin Smith always tells the story that when he was doing a Superman movie, he wrote a script and the producer wanted a giant spider at the end. And when the spider in the third act. So when that Superman movie didn't happen, the third act spider ended up in Wild Wild West because it was the same producer and he got his giant spider, damn it.
Yeah. Well, no. So the two best special agents in the Wild West must save President Grant from the clutches of a diabolical, wheelchair-bound, steampunk-savvy Confederate scientist bent on revenge for losing the Civil War.
To be fair, that is an awesome description of that movie. That movie sounds amazing.
And honestly, it really was. But like I said, is it more just because I have that nostalgia for it? I don't know.
It is number 2 on our list for a reason, and that is because it hit us at the right time. And like we said at the beginning, this is about the enjoyability of it all. You know what I mean? And we found that film very enjoyable.
And it had some great scenes, like the magnets with the saw blades, them running through with like the saw blades, like being
Yeah.
attracted to the magnets.
Yeah, very, very inventive for sure.
Yeah, I love that. So that brings us to number 1.
Number 1. Now, guys, if you've been listening to this show for any amount of time, the number 1 pick may not surprise you. I know it didn't surprise Ryan.
Tremors 4.
Yes!
The legend begins.
The best cowboy sci-fi movie out there.
A prequel to Tremors of 1990. This movie tells us about how the town of Perfection, Nevada, became founded and how they defended it against the graboids with the help of Burt Gummer's ancestor, Hiram.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah.
Okay, so I have
I don't think I saw this one.
Oh, in my defense. So, they made a movie called Tremors, obviously. Then when Tremors 2 came out 6 years later, it was also a theatrical release. It didn't do as well. So later down the line, they made Tremors 3, which I believe was a Sci-Fi Channel original movie, which was supposed to be a backdoor pilot for the Tremors series, which only lasted 1 season but did exist. Well, after that, they made the Tremors 4. And at this point, they weren't going to do anything else with Tremors. So it was kind of like a finale where they're like, we'll do one last movie. We'll give it a weird little, kind of a niche because it's a cowboy movie. It's a prequel. We'll tie it all up because it wasn't until 2015 that we got Tremors 5, Bloodlines. Everything is fucking called Bloodlines. There's
Yeah.
a new Final Destination movie called Bloodlines.
Yeah.
There was a Pet Sematary movie called Bloodlines.
There was a Hellraiser movie.
There's a Hellraiser Bloodlines.
Yep.
All right, but anyways, back to Tremors 4. It was fun. It was a lot of fun because you could tell at this point it was, oh, it doesn't matter, man. Just make a movie. So I just feel like the filmmakers got to do whatever they wanted. There was the point where there was baby tremors. They're called graboids, and they are subterranean worms that pull people down and eat them. I can't imagine you don't know. But because the baby versions are like the size of footballs, they were able to dive out of the ground and like knock people over and like go back into like Scrooge McDuck style doing the swimming. They had a lot of fun stuff. That is my justification.
Yeah. No, it's a good one, and it's funny. Like, out just off the top of my head, I remember playing Fallout New Vegas, and one of the downloadable content is you get abducted by aliens,
Yeah.
and when you're up there, you find once you get to like their hibernation chambers or whatever with all their experiments, you find a bunch of humans that are kind of frozen, and you can unfreeze them. And there's like a samurai from like ancient Japan, and there's a cowboy from the old Wild West who's been there.
Perfect.
And it's cool, and he's like one of the best characters. And at the end, if you save him and stuff like that, he gives you his gun, and it's a
It's
cool
like one of the
gun.
best weapons in the game, I
It
bet.
shoots all 6 of the projectiles at once and each shot, so it's very strong.
That sounds pretty cool.
It was pretty sweet.
You know, aliens abducting cowboys is a thing, man. I did it in we had a web series, and the final episode was called 2000 Fuzz: The Space Oddity. It's season 2, episode 8. But long story short, same thing. We had Billy the Kid had been abducted by aliens way back when. So when we're running around a spaceship, we open up a container, and Billy the Kid comes out,
Yep.
and he helps us fight space Nazis.
Yep.
So why not, man? Sci-fi and cowboys, to me, it's a winning combination. And we hope you guys enjoyed our list of the top best, in our opinion, enjoyable, not saying they're the great quality, sci-fi Western movies.
I'm gonna have to watch Tremors 4.
Tremors 4. Interesting side note, in the opening credits to Tremors 4, there's this real like rock and cowboy song, like whatever. I had a buddy who is an actor. He was at the wedding. He actually stood up in our wedding. So Caleb, you've met him.
Yeah.
Did a bunch of music videos. He did a bunch of movies. I was watching Mythic Quest season 1, and I forgot he was in it. So suddenly Caleb shows up. I'm like, "Hey, what's up, man?"
It's awesome.
But long story short, he used to tell me that he wanted to do something that had that badass of a theme, and that is the reason why I casted him as Billy the Kid
Yep.
in that, what I was just saying, the Fuzz Malloy episode, because he wanted the cowboy thing. And it all comes back to Tremors 4.
Yeah, I guess so. I guess it really does.
It really does. All right, guys. Well, we only have one last order of business today, and that is a Tattered Tales. And I know what you're
Yeah.
thinking. This is not the last week of the month. Why are we getting a Tattered Tales? Well, it's a cowboy themed Tattered Tales, so it just seemed to fit.
It does. It fits, and it's a good one. So I know everybody's gonna like this one.
Yes, I wrote it. It is called The Nightmare Duel. It is about cowboys and dark entities, and I think you will enjoy it. So sit back, relax, and check out this Tattered Tale, The Nightmare Duel, written by Joe Wick.
Hey, I'm wondering if you can help me. I seem to find myself in quite a mess here. Truthfully, Well, I'm not sure whether I'm lost, trapped, or being held captive. Probably be easier to explain if I was certain of which one. Now, I don't want to leave you out-headed, nor do I have time to yarn away for too long. Still, it's probably best if I start from the beginning. I was riding through northern Wyoming to a small settlement that is little more than a bone orchard. For whatever reason, the town dried up before ever getting a proper name. Few folks that still live there refer to it as Stillbend. I rode in about an hour after dawn. A few folks on the street leered at me as I surveyed the town.
Look at her.
No doubt marveling at how improper I look. If a woman not riding side saddle wasn't strange enough, the fact that I had the gall to wear what they perceived to be men's clothing really caused a stir with these 10-cent men. If the town was left dying on my last visit, now it looked like crowbait. Besides, for the handful of people poking around, the only signs of life that I could see was coming from the half-dilapidated saloon at the center of Main Street. The music pouring out of that place was in stark contrast to the decaying ruins of this once booming prospecting camp. I tried to pay it no mind as I walked over to the hoosgow. Well, what in the... When I got to the board, there wasn't a single bounty posted. Normally, that would be all she wrote, but I figured I better step in and see, just in case. What? Huh. Ugh. Oh, I was fit to be tied. The place was deserted. There wasn't a sheriff, deputy, or jailbird in sight. Oh, hell! From the looks of it, the law left this town to the wolves. I can't say I was too surprised, but problem was, no law meant no lawbreakers, and no lawbreakers meant no bounties. Suddenly, I found myself in a real predicament. I needed to find some paying work before I ended up like the rest of the coffee boilers around these parts. I decided to trot over to the saloon. It seemed to me that if there were any work to be found, it would be there. I about swallowed my heart when I saw the saloon was about as dead as the rest of the town. Took all I had not to air out my lungs right then and there, although that could bring the type of attention that would make an already queer sight such as myself unemployable amongst this lot. I noticed the bartender staring at me. He gave me a short nod. I returned the gesture and headed over to the bar.
Howdy. Whiskey?
Just an Adam's ale, thanks. I couldn't help but notice y'all ain't got any bounties posted.
Well, Missy, I suppose that's because no one's been tending that post for a few months now. Sheriff Brown cleared out the place with his 2 girls. Then the 3 of them got to wiggle on out of here. Right around the time the troubles began.
Before I could inquire as to what new thing could have happened that would still be considered troubles compared to what has already come to pass here, we were interrupted by a familiar voice.
Now, do my eyes deceive me, or is that there Jenny Lang roosting at my bar?
It was Cheryl Lamont, a working girl I met a few years back while in the midst of a manhunt in the surrounding area. Her story was sad, but not uncommon for women in her position. Poor girl was widowed young, forced to dance the cooch to keep food in her belly. Like you might expect, one thing led to the other, and soon young Cheryl found herself a permanent resident of the McShane Saloon. Hey there, Cheryl.
It is you! My dear girl, it's been too long. What brings you to this godforsaken place?
Just making my way across the state, picking up work as I go. Usual. Unfortunately, your barkeep here has just informed me that Stillben's well has gone dry, so to speak.
Ain't that the truth?
It's a shame, really.
Well, if the whole thing is a bust, why are you two still here?
Cripes, Jen. Where would I go?
Wherever you want. Cheryl just looked at me a little sadly and shrugged. She would never leave. For the same reason she stayed after her husband died. The girl is rooted. For better or worse. I gave her a solemn nod of recognition. No need to make her say it out loud. I let her off the hook and turned my attention back to the barkeep. What about you? What's your excuse for not turning tail? The man threw up his arms and started gesturing around the saloon.
You're standing in it. This place is all I have to my name. If I could pop out every board and pick up every stone and take it with me down yonder, I'd done it years ago. Anyone with the means to leave already has. No. I'm afraid the town's fate will be our fate. We're all stuck, like a hair in the butter.
We're damned, is what we are. Have you told her about the troubles yet?
Just about, too. Before you came down here with that $5 grin of yours.
All right, enough is enough. Will you two stop wobbling your jaws and get to it? What exactly are these troubles?
Not what? Who?
The man in black.
He ain't no man.
Cheryl here thinks we got ourselves a genuine devil. But I reckon you and I know better. He's a man, all right. Wicked, nonetheless.
He's been coming around for a while now. Always at night, always alone. At first, we paid him no mind. It's not entirely uncommon for folks to wander in on their way to someplace else.
Just as likely he was a waddy. That's what I thought.
Mrs. Claiborne was the first to spot his true nature. According to her, the man walked straight into her barn and slaughtered 3 of her cattle that first night.
Folks rustling cattle isn't anything new.
You don't understand. He ripped those poor creatures apart.
I wasn't there, but I heard the screams. The next morning, I saw the mess. You know, I think he was doing it just for fun.
It happened again and again, just like that, every night.
When he ran out of steers, he started coming after us.
And you all have been sitting back, watching this happen this whole time?
Of course not. Samuel and a few of his boys set up an ambush a few weeks back.
And, well, I think it's pretty clear how that turned out.
The man never enters anyone's home, you understand? If your doors are shut and your windows are closed, he leaves you alone. I guess that's how we've all learned to live with it. With no more livestock around, things have been relatively quiet.
Maybe he doesn't barge in, but he'll watch you. Even with everything sealed up tight, I've seen him peering in at me from outside. He'll stand there all night, staring. I think he's the devil come to damn this place for all its wicked greed during the rush.
Now, I'm not superstitious, and I doubted very much that there was anything going on. Except maybe a crazy person, pushing his luck in an already bad situation. Still, Cheryl's eyes seemed to speak a truth my mind couldn't quite wrap itself around yet. So, I'd assume you'd all about sell the shirt off your back to get rid of this trouble. Am I right?
Ma'am, If you could somehow rid us of this man, I'll give you 25% stake in the card game we got going here. Ain't much traffic coming through lately. Even so, you're looking at quite a payout in short measure.
I don't know, Shug. Lord knows you're fast with that shooting iron, but I'm not so sure you should crawl his hump.
Let me worry about that. You're expecting him tonight?
Yes, ma'am. He strolls in around midnight, and I doubt very much that this evening will be the exception.
Well, let's not hang fire then. I set up shop on the stoop of the sheriff's station. I've done this kind of thing dozens of times, but Cheryl's take on this man had me spooked. I feel a lot better once this job was done. Like the man in black was in tune to my silent wish. He suddenly appeared on the horizon. The dark figure was backlit by the full moon. He moved with intent, walking straight with a steady pace. He stared forward as he moved, not distracted by any of his surroundings, just strolling ever forward towards Main Street. Soon, he was right in front of me. Cheryl was truthful about one thing. There was something dark about this man. Whether he didn't notice me or chose to ignore it, he passed by the sheriff's station without even looking over. I let him go a few paces before I noticed he was headed for my horse, hitched up just past the old hotel. Realizing if I didn't intervene, this man would happily make a meal of the poor animal, I got up and headed into the street to meet him. Hey there, stranger. I don't think we met. The two of us faced off about 20 paces from each other. The shadows must have been playing tricks because his eyes looked black as oil. He never actually acknowledged my words, nor did he respond to them. At least not in the way you'd expect a man to react. No, this was more like the gaze of a bobcat, staring down its next meal. Before I knew it, he dug for his cannon. He let that lead plumb fly. He was fast. Normal gal would find herself pushing daisies after a shot like that. Luckily, I ain't your normal gal. I managed to dodge to the left just in time to save my life. Fortunately, not my skin. That blue whistler grazed my neck as it flew by. I lost a little bit of blood, but it wasn't deep enough to strike anything vital. I pulled my six-shooter as fast as my hands and my heart would let me, and I fired. My aim was true. The bullet soared straight and landed right between the man in black's eyes. And I knew he was dead straight off. But it was as if his body refused to accept it. He stood there, swaying for a moment. A small river of smoke escaped from the bullet hole and dissipated into the air before his lifeless shell finally collapsed. Ha! So much for the devil. I headed over to him when suddenly his body began to have a fit. He was shaking something fierce, convulsing. His back violently arched to the point where he practically threw himself into the air. That's when I noticed the dark blood beginning to bubble up his throat and out of his mouth. No, wait. It wasn't blood. It was the same color I thought I saw in the man's eyes. A pure black, oily tone. Yeah. Oil. That's a good way to describe it. Finally, his body stopped wiggling around, but the oil just kept coming. Soon it was dripping out of his nostrils, his ears, and of course the newly mined hole in his head. It pooled around him, accumulating in value. Soon the puddle was larger than a normal human body could possibly hold. And then, the strangest thing happened. The oil began to float. Soon, in a matter of seconds, all of the oil joined the accumulating mass suspended above the ground, It continued to wiggle around as a liquid not bound by earthly laws. I just stared in awe. I mean, what would you do? About a split second before I snapped out of it and headed for the hills. The oil, the entity, did the same. Like a bat out of hell, it flew off, continuing to stay no more than 5 feet off the ground as it traveled. I was so surprised I actually let it pass me before I was able to react. Took me just a moment, but then my feet were moving lickety-split in the opposite direction towards my horse. I just happened to look down at the man in black's body as I passed. The expression on his face looked somehow unburdened, more human. I don't know who you were, but I'll get the thing that corrupted you and use you like nothing more than a puppet on a string. Oh, yes, I will. It's gonna be a hog-killing time. Yeah! I chased the nightmarish blob for a while before it finally took a hard right into the forest. I was on its tail practically the whole time, dodging trees as I went. Somehow I lost the entity after I followed it into a clearing. A few deer became spooked by my sudden appearance and ran off into the woods from the other side of a small pond. I slowed my breathing as best I could and just sat there for a while, waiting, listening, searching with my eyes, even though the task was futile. You can't follow the trail of something that doesn't touch the ground. Suddenly, there was a loud, horrifying death cry coming from just beyond the tree line across the pond. It was a deer, no doubt. Any child who has bagged his first buck could describe that sound to you. That terrible, heartbreaking sound that both fills your heart with sorrow while simultaneously making your stomach rumble. Just a moment after the deer stopped screaming, it came walking out of the woods. As it moved slowly into the moonlight, I got the briefest glimpse of the black oil entering the deer through its eyes. Its eyes went completely black. The entity had taken control. I slowly reached for the knife I had strapped to my ankle, trying my best to get it before the beast charged. As it happened, we both moved at just about the same time. It was on top of me before I could do much of anything. I managed to avoid the antlers, but I still ended up on the ground. A second later, and I was being viciously trampled on by the hooves of this possessed animal. I was under it now, moments away from my own death. But luckily for me, the fates were on my side. With all my might, I tried to force my knife into the beast's heart, not knowing for sure if it would do a lick of good. This thing's last vessel was taken down by a bullet, so it stands to reason my knife could take care of the job. I got to my feet as the deer staggered away from me. I watched in disbelief as it briefly wagged its snout, as if shaking off an insignificant knock on the head. Then it turned its attention back on me. I got into a better stance in anticipation of the next attack. This time, the entity got the better of me. It struck me like a freight train. The deer's antlers pierced both my shoulders and lifted me off my feet. Instead of throwing me to the side, the deer continued to run forward before leaping into the air and diving straight down into the small pond. It's kind of hard to explain what happened next. As the entity dragged me deeper and deeper below the water, it almost seemed as though the pond was bottomless. Then, it was as if the entire world was turning on its axis. Suddenly, instead of going deeper, it was as if I was re-emerging from a different pool on the other side. Luckily, somewhere along the line, I managed to detach myself from the deer's antlers. After we both reached the surface of the water, we independently swam to the opposite sides of the pond shore. I was somewhere else now. I've never seen a place so dark. This was hell. The Bible has been lying to folks because there was not a fire in sight. I quickly regained my composure and turned to see my enemy. The deer was lying dead on the shore, just on the other side of the pond. Good riddance. I dragged my waterlogged and my bleeding body to a sitting position, began to survey my new surroundings. I was still in a forest, only this one was different. The trees surrounding the pond all seemed to be of equal diameter, and paired together like an endless sea of identical twin plants. There was no bark as far as I could tell. In fact, the surfaces of their trunks appeared to look more like thick rubber posts than anything else. I turned my head up to examine the branches, only to find that all of the trees disappeared into the darkness above. It was only possible for me to see maybe 10 feet up before the endless sea of black. At that moment, it became painfully apparent that there were no stars in the night sky, nor was the moon anywhere to be found. The sound of the deer convulsing, just like the men in black, drew my attention away from the sky. If this thing was still looking for a fight, I was in trouble. It would be a miracle if I could even get to my feet. Like before, the black oil began oozing out of the deer's corpse. Only this time, instead of forming a floating, shapeless blob, the entity took on a humanoid, anthropomorphic shape. Once its metamorphosis was complete, a featureless, jet-black entity stood on the other side of the pond in full defiance of God and nature. I drew my knife in preparation of the entity's final attack. It didn't move. If the thing had eyes, I would say it was staring at me. Although, who knows? I was tired. I was bloody, but I wasn't beaten yet. Well, what are you waiting for? Get it over with already! Despite not having a mouth, the thing began to laugh. Then, as if in a nightmare, the entity started to grow. He rose into the air, higher and higher, while his limbs and his waist increased in diameter. It wasn't long before I could no longer see above the entity's midsection. His top half disappeared into the darkness, just like the tops of the trees surrounding us. The trees! I frantically studied the forest around me. To my horror, the true depth of my bad box was revealed. Oh my God! They're legs! They're all legs! As if the devil himself meant to confirm my nightmare. A large flash of green lightning above illuminated the giant silhouettes of all the entities surrounding me. I was nothing but an ant looking up at Legion. All I could do was scream, one by one, in short succession. All of the massive creatures around me bent over. It was impossible to tell what was darkness and what was them, as I was soon engulfed in the oily liquid. Oh, Jesus, Cheryl, I'm sorry. I should have listened to you. I followed my pride all the way into hell. And now, it seems as though my tale had its end. Then, there was silence. When I next opened my eyes, I was here, wherever here is. If a place could look like no place, that's where I am. I'm not really standing. I'm not really floating. My surroundings could best be described as a void, although it's not black or filled with light. Truthfully, not sure words exist that would be able to accurately describe the true absence of everything. I guess none of that really matters now. Please, Cheryl, If you're out there, if you can somehow hear me, I need you, please. I'm afraid.
I never did see my friend Jenny again. Not after that night. Not the real Jenny, anyway. At least I will never forget her. Her face stares back at me from the street every night. The same sweet smile with her new black eyes. I told you, we're damned.
Well, we hope you liked that spooky Tattered Tales story.
I know I did.
I mean, that one's honestly one of my favorites. I think I wrote over 20 of them, and I think about 15 got produced before we went on hiatus.
Mhm.
And out of all of them, that one is I really like that one. I guess there's nothing more to say. I always meant to bring back the dark black entity that, like, possesses people and talk about like their world and everything like that. And maybe I still will when we bring the show back. But for now, that's the Tattered Tale for this story. And that's the end of the show.
I reckon.
Did you like our cowboy themed or Old West themed show? If you did, make sure to tell us at Earthling Entertainment Podcast at gmail.com, or you could hit us up on Facebook. We'd love to hear your thoughts.
Yeah.
And if you guys want a sticker, you just ask and we'll send a bumper sticker your way. Just give us the address. And Ryan has a mission for you.
Should you choose to accept it, is to share this episode, this podcast, with a coworker, with a friend, with a loved one. Spread the word around. It's word of mouth that gets us out there. We appreciate all of you guys for listening. So please, let's get some more.
Yep. And download the episode. Honestly, guys, it doesn't really matter where you listen to this podcast, whether it's Good Pods or Spotify, Apple, Amazon. It doesn't matter. Downloading the episode is the best way to support the show. Not sure why, but the people who number these things, they care about the downloads. That's what they want to see. So thanks for listening. And from all of us here at Earthling Entertainment,
adios, partner.
I reckon that was a good show.
I reckon.
Have a good day.
Mm-hmm.
This is us figuratively walking into the sunset.
That's right.
So to simulate that, we've actually set up studio lights to blare in our face that we're going to turn on right now as we live. So ready? Go. Ah!
Oh.
Okay. This is a stupid idea.
I can't see anything. Am I a cowboy yet?
It's a podcast.
Oh.
No one's even watching.